I'm going to be reading and discussing Combat Liberalism by Mao Tse-Tung. He wrote this in 1937 during a period of time where they were fighting against Japanese imperialism. But that doesn't mean these are outdated. A lot of these are still applicable today. You just have to break them down and understand what they mean so you can apply these principles to your daily life. Okay, let's get started. We stand for active ideological struggle because it is the weapon for ensuring unity within the party and the revolutionary organizations in the interest of our fight. Every communist and revolutionary should take up this weapon, ideological struggle. But liberalism rejects ideological struggle and stands for unprincipled peace, thus giving rise to a decadent, Philistine attitude and bringing about political degeneration in certain units and individuals in the party and the revolutionary organizations. In this case, Philistine means an indifference. Liberalism manifests itself in various ways. To let things slide for the sake of peace and friendship when a person has clearly gone wrong, and refrain from principled argument because he is an old acquaintance, a fellow townsman, a schoolmate, a close friend, a loved one, an old colleague or old subordinate, or to touch on the matter lightly instead of going into it thoroughly so as to keep on good terms. The result is that both the organization and the individual are harmed. This is one type of liberalism. So I would view that as a type of liberalism based around nepotism, is that either a person doesn't speak out or only says a little bit to try and maintain a relationship. To indulge in irresponsible criticism in private instead of actively putting forward one's suggestions to the organization. To say nothing to people to their faces but to gossip behind their backs, or to say nothing at a meeting but to gossip afterwards. To show no regard at all for the principles of collective life but to follow one's own inclination. This is a second type. So that would be like gossip, not really putting anything forward for improvement, just keeping it on the side, kind of toxic. To let things drift if they do not affect one personally. To say as little as possible while knowing perfectly well what is wrong. To be worldly wise and play safe, and seek only to avoid blame. This is a third type. So this would kind of follow the concept of silence is violence. Not to obey orders, but to give pride of place to one's own opinions. To demand special consideration from the organization, but to reject its discipline. This is a fourth type. That would be like prideful, someone views himself as above the party, for thee, but not for me. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels, vent personal spite, or seek revenge, instead of entering into an argument and struggling against incorrect views for the sake of unity or progress, or getting the work done properly. This is a fifth type. So that would be like an undisciplined critique or accusation for the purpose of attacking another person rather than improvement or progress or unity. To hear incorrect views without rebutting them, and even to hear counter-revolutionary remarks without reporting them, but instead to take them calmly as if nothing had happened. This is a sixth type. This would be just exactly what it sounds, hearing something incorrect or hearing something harmful and doing nothing about it. To be among the masses and fail to conduct propaganda and agitation, or speak at meetings, or conduct investigations and inquiries among them, and instead to be indifferent to them and show no concern for their well-being, forgetting that one is a communist and behaving as if one were an ordinary non-communist. This is the seventh type. A main part of being a communist is to educate, agitate, and organize. If one decides, well, I'm off today, or I just don't feel like it, and then they just fail to do these things when they are among the masses, that's a type of liberalism. To see someone harming the interests of the masses, and yet not feel indignant, or dissuade or stop him, or reason with him, but to allow him to continue, this is an eighth type. So if you see someone hurting someone or harming the interests of the masses, and you choose to do nothing, that shows a lack of empathy, which is harmful. To work half-heartedly without a definite plan or direction, to work perfunctorily and muddle along. Quote, so long as one remains a monk, one goes on tolling the bell. End quote. This is a ninth type. This would be like toiling absent-mindedly, having a very defeatist attitude. It's important to maintain a level of revolutionary optimism so you can keep pushing forward. You might not be able to do anything specific right now, but it is important to look for those opportunities and maintain that optimism. To regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran, to disdain minor assignments while being quite unequal to major tasks, to be slipshod in work and slack in study. This is the 10th type. This would be somebody who has a very prideful attitude, somebody who has an inflated sense of self-importance. So they might not put a whole lot of effort into their work, study, or improvement. To be aware of one's own mistakes, yet make no attempt to correct them, taking a liberal attitude towards oneself. This is an 11th type. This could be either somebody who knows what to do, but doesn't do it, or it could be somebody who hears critiques, but they don't consider these critiques. They make no investigation to improve themselves. We could name more, but these 11 are the principal types. They are all manifestations of liberalism. Liberalism is extremely harmful in a revolutionary collective. It is a corrosive which eats away unity, undermines cohesion, causes apathy, and creates dissension. It robs the revolutionary ranks of compact organization and strict discipline, prevents policies from being carried through, and alienates the party organizations from the masses which the party leads. It is an extremely bad tendency. Liberalism stems from petit bourgeois selfishness. It places personal interests first, and the interests of the revolution second, and this gives rise to ideological, political, and organizational liberalism. So liberalism is a very individualist ideology. It prioritizes the interests of the individual at the expense of the interests of the collective. People who are liberals look upon the principles of Marxism as abstract dogma. They approve of Marxism, but are not prepared to practice it, or to practice it in full. They are not prepared to replace their liberalism by Marxism. These people have their Marxism, but they have their liberalism as well. They talk Marxism, but practice liberalism. They apply Marxism to others, but liberalism to themselves. They keep both kinds of goods in stock and find a use for each. This is how the minds of certain people work. Sometimes liberals will use revolutionary language while prioritizing and practicing their own individualism. Liberalism is a manifestation of opportunism and conflicts fundamentally with Marxism. It is negative and objectively has the effect of helping the enemy. That is why the enemy welcomes its preservation in our midst. Such being its nature, there should be no place for it in the ranks of the revolution. Liberalism will compromise with oppression or the enemy out of self-interest. We must use Marxism, which is positive in spirit, to overcome liberalism, which is negative. A communist should have largeness of mind, and he should be staunch and active, looking upon the interests of the revolution as his very life, and subordinating his personal interests to those of the revolution. Always and everywhere, he should adhere to the principle and wage a tireless struggle against all incorrect ideas and actions, so as to consolidate the collective life of the party and strengthen the ties between the party and the masses. He should be more concerned about the party and the masses than about any private person, and more concerned about others than about himself. Only thus can he be considered a communist. All loyal, honest, active, and upright communists must unite to oppose the liberal tendencies shown by certain people among us, and set them on the right path. This is one of the tasks on our ideological front. And that concludes it.